Good morning and welcome to this special video. Have you ever wondered which lenses will give you the best results and with which ones you will shoot the most? In this video, you will discover an analysis that I have made over the past 100,000 photos, past 6 years, of all the lenses I've used, how I've shot with them, and which one delivered consistently the best results. This will be very interesting, so make sure you watch until the end because that conclusion may help you find the next best lens for you, or at least save you some money in not getting the wrong lens. So if you're ready, let's get started. Welcome to a new episode. All right, 100,000 plus photos, 6 years of work, and I went in and deep dive into all the stats about my lenses, how many shots I've taken, how many are portfolio worthy, 3-star, 4-star, 5 stars. And in this video, I'm going to share with you all those results so you can make informed decisions if you need to choose a new lens, if you need to sell an old lens, and when you have to choose on the field which lens to use. So we're gonna deconstruct this in 4 parts. The first one is going to be how I analyze the data. The second one is going to be the results in terms of volume of photos taken, how many with each photos, how many I kept, etc. And number 3 is going to be the ratios per lens, the performance per lenses that I've used. And number 4, I'm going to be drawing some conclusions that can help you in your own photography. So if you're curious, let's get started. First of all, how did I actually find out all about that data? Did I go back manually and check every EXIF? No. Thankfully, I'm using Lightroom Classic, and in Lightroom Classic, you can just go to your library and open the library filter and then turn on the metadata, and you can choose if you want lens, camera, and a bunch of other cool metadata that you can use to actually filter your photos. So let's say I want to know how many photos I've taken with the 16-35. I can see that number right here. And then with the GM2, I see that number right here. That's for my one working catalog from 2019 until 2024. For the period of 2017 to 2018, I have a separate catalog, which made me use another tool I'm going to share with you in a second that is also extremely helpful for finding any kind of photos anywhere. But let's look at those data. Then I went in and selected 3 photos, 3 stars, 4 stars, and 5 stars to get exactly the data. I compiled that into a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you the result in a second. And I did that for all my lenses. So we have 16-35, 70-100, 24-70, 20 millimeter, 50 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and 14 millimeter f1.8. So we have a mix of zoom and prime lenses. And in order to go and search in my other catalogs also that are indexed, I used a little tool called Pictosearch. Really cool software that's like a plugin, and it literally indexes all your catalogs. And then you can search. Let's say if you're looking for flowers in all your photos, you can type flower, and it's gonna pull up all the photos of flowers that you have in your catalogs. And you just click on one and it will take you right there. And you end up at the photo in your Lightroom library. Extremely helpful. If you've ever looked for photos everywhere, very helpful. Now, it also shows you stats, meaning like when are those photos of dogs taken? Wow. So between 2017 and 2024, I can see like when I took photos of dogs on consistent basis and stuff. Well, that's cool. That's interesting. But what I'm more interested here is, and actually you can find similar images. I'll drop a link in the description if you're interested in that software. It's really good. Nothing sponsored here. It's just something I've been using for a year and I love it, especially when I have to find photos that I don't know where they are. So now I can have criteria, so 3 stars, 4 stars, but I can also put like lens model, so 16-35, and it's gonna show me all the photos taken with a Canon 16-35. As you can see, I never shoot with a Canon, or barely ever, and now 16-35 GM1 and 16-35 GM2. There we go. And now we have all those photos that show up. So the gray bar is all the photos taken, and the blue bar is all the photos taken that match those criteria. So as you can see, I've used extensively this 16-35 over the years, right? And then you can also put 3 stars and see how many 3-star photos or 2-star photos I've taken with the 16-35 GM. Okay, so that's interesting. I used all that data and compiled it into my spreadsheet. So you can see the lens name here. If it's a zoom or prime lens, then the number of photos taken, and the number that are 3-star, 4-star, 5 stars, and then a ratio of 3+ stars, 4+ stars, etc. I then went and took that table, dropped it in ChatGPT, and asked it to create charts for me because I actually think it does it better than me. Here are the results. Part 2, results and number of photos taken. We have 25,416 photos taken with that 1635. And I combined 1635 GM1 and GM2 because I want to know that lens range, meaning 1635, 2470, 7200. And same for the 7200, I have the GM1 and GM2 in that data. So 25,400 photos over 6 years because I've had those two lenses over 6 years. Then I have the 1630, 7200 1 and 2 that are also covered on those 6 years. And we can see that I only took half the photos I take with the 1635 in that period of time. So way less photos, you can see half of it. And now 24mm that I had, I think for the first time in 2019. So we can just look at it and we'll very quickly see. So that 24mm, I got it in January or just before January 2019. And as you can see, I've used it extensively since for a period of time until 2021 and way less after. 2470, I only got that lens later in life. So less photos taken, 85mm. It's a lens I've had for many years, but not that many photos taken. 50mm 1.2, I've taken a bunch of photos over a short period of time, I would say. 20mm and then 35mm, and my least used is the 14mm f1.8. Now, obviously that's over 6 years, and some of them I've had them for only 2 years, like the 2470, but I still have more photos with the 2470 over 2 years than I have with the 14mm that I have since 2021. So, as you can see, it really varies in usage. Now let's move on to part 3, because the part 3 is testing the performance of those lenses. Which one are 3+ stars? What is the ratio for each lens of basically how many photos I have kept and how many were actually photos that I really love. Just as a reference, 3 stars for me is I love it, 2 stars I keep, 4 stars is oh my god, and 5 stars like wow, I gotta print this is my portfolio. Let's look into the lens performance. Oop, by the way, if you don't know me, my name is Pierre T. Lambert. I'm a travel adventure photographer and the creator of 30-day adventure to great photo, a step-by-step method for training your eyes to see like a photographer, shoot like a photographer, and take photos you love no matter what kind of gear you're using. There's a link in the description if you want to learn more. But I also share photography adventures on this YouTube channel, so you can actually go back in time and watch adventures of me shooting on the field with some of these lenses. So subscribe if you want to also learn more, and let's get started. Lens performance. 14mm ends up with 15% of success in terms of getting 3+ stars photos, which is insane. You'll see there may be a reason behind that. 50mm, we're at 10%, close to 10% for 20mm, then we drop at 7.7% for 24mm. So now we're in the zoom category. 35mm 7%, 7% for 85, 7200 6.7, 1635 5.8, and 24mm f1.4. I don't know why 5.2%, which is kind of surprising. Now it kind of inverts on some of those lenses when we look at the 4+ stars photos. So that 14mm is still consistently the highest, so 24%, which is really high. 7200 is around 9% now versus 7200 at 6% for 3 stars. So it seems like I'm taking a higher, it's more consistent for 4+ stars with 7200. Now the 1635 drops to 4%. Okay, so clearly that lens has something. Is it the lens? Is it how you use it? We'll talk about that in a second. Then we have 10% 20, 10% or 9% 35mm, 9% 50mm. So those results are fairly consistent. That 2414 is consistently low, which is surprising because it's a lens I absolutely love. And that 85mm is kind of low too. Maybe explained because I use that lens a lot in street photography at night, and I don't always pick up portfolio photos for that. I'll reveal why that 14mm is so high in a second. But now let's look at prime versus zoom lenses. Okay, usage and performance. So zoom, I have 43,000 photos taken with it. Okay, prime, we're at a shy 20,000 photos. So that means I'm shooting twice as much with a zoom lens than with a prime. And what's interesting is the ratio of 3+ stars is extremely high at 9% on average for primes versus a low 6.5% for the zooms, right? And last but not least, the primes here for 4+ are actually closer to the zoom for 4+ stars, which is interesting. It also shows my criteria for 4+ star photos is very tight. So the question now is like, how do these kind of compare, and what can I draw upon? The first thing I want to mention is that 14mm. Why is that ratio so high? Why do I take so many 3-star photos? Why are we at 15%? Let's look at some of the photos at 14mm, okay? And you'll very quickly understand why. So if you've never seen photos at 14mm, it's a specific look. It is extremely wide and you can't use it just for anything. That means that when I use it, I am very, very intentional. When I decide to go for that lens, I think about it many times, and I actually will have the lens sometimes and not use it in my bag, you know? But when I do use it, I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I know exactly how I'm gonna shoot and why. And a lot of those photos are taken usually at 14mm are night shots. And night shots for me are shots that easily get 4 stars, 3 stars. Same for Northern Lights. Those shots taken at 14mm are easy to get 4 or 5 stars because I absolutely love them, you know. And then I have a few conceptual shots that I did also. But the first conclusion really is that with the 14mm, when I go in, I am extremely intentional. Shooting with a prime lens that is not very standard, like 14mm, will force you to have creative choices, very intentional. And that yields clearly better results because I end up with like drastically more photos that I love in that category. Okay, interesting, right? Now, when it comes to that 16-35, why is it so low, that ratio? Well, the 16-35 is a lens that I've used so much, and we can see it in the graph that we looked at earlier. So that 16-35 was literally the lenses I would use the most on trips. Every time I have to run and gun, I walk around, I'm not sure what I'm gonna shoot, I grab my 16-35. That changed the day I started shooting with the 24-70 actually. I got the 24-70 in July 2022, about there. And this is a lens I clearly have been using a lot during trips. As you can see when you have the high peaks, those are like photo trips. And most of the photos are taken with the 24-70. This is a lens I will walk around all day long with and take a little bit of everything and nothing sometimes. And you can see it's very wide ranging. It could range from an event to landscape photos, to portrait photos, to kind of everything in between. I used it a lot in Nepal, for example. Lots of photos that I absolutely loved with it. It's very versatile lens, right? Now, the thing is, it has a lower shoot to keep photo rate, right? And that is understandable because I can shoot everything and nothing. Now, if you look at the 70-200, actually the 70-200 performs very similar to a prime lens. Why is that? That 70-200, when you're gonna use it, you will be very intentional with it. Why? Because you cannot very narrow, right? And 70 and 200 is not for every day. It may be when I did some safari, I took photos with that 70-200. I will use it intentionally for street photos, for portraits. And it's very interesting to see how my usage of lenses that are kind of tight or difficult to work with because they're ultra wide will impact my keeping ratio. Now, 3 lenses that are fairly interesting to look at are 50mm and 20mm. I find that I'm getting good results with those two, and I'm not surprised that 51.2 I absolutely love, and that 20mm f1.8 kind of replaced my 24mm in a lot of circumstances. You see this was taken with a 51.2, for example. We have a lot of really cool photos that are a little vibey, and I think maybe that 50mm tight and focal length, I actually pretty much like it. But if we look at it, I actually don't really save 5-star photos for that 50mm, which is also another interesting point. But that 20mm is going to have 5-star photos and a better ratio even than that 50mm for 4-star photos, which actually surprised me because I thought that 24mm would perform better than the 20, but no, I've taken lots of photos I love with that little prime lens. It is small, it is mighty, you just put it in your bag, you forget about it, and you can take lots of great photos with it. And I absolutely loved using it even for portraits, ultra wide portraits like these. Oh my God, I absolutely love. So what's extremely important for you to realize here is that if you're choosing a new lens, if you're choosing a lens even to use in your bag, you will have to make a choice between versatility and kind of creative restriction. But instead of thinking about it as a restriction, see it as something that may improve the quality of your photos. At least if you have similar data to me, you may be working more intentionally, and that's something a lot of photographers talk about. A lot of pro photographers will tell you with the prime lens you shoot differently, and it looks like the data is showing the exact same thing. So it's not just an intuition, it is actually something that I quantified and made sure I have. So I invite you to do that analysis for yourself because it may be different. But if you're trying to buy a new lens, maybe go for a prime lens, especially if you already have zooms and you find that you're not really happy with your photos. Work with that prime lens. It will work you differently. And it also begs the question of, is it because that zooms are more versatile that you will be using them in more difficult conditions and more random conditions that will make you take better photos? Or if you shot only with a prime lens, would you have similar results? That is a question I'm still asking myself, and I'm going to be experimenting a little more and share with you the results. So now there's an opportunity to rethink when we use zoom lenses. Despite most of my photos being taken with zoom lenses, a vast majority, the cost of that versatility is actually a lower quality or less photos that I personally love on the outcome. So should I refocus on using only prime lenses? That is a good question. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you want to watch an analysis of how I shot photos and the mistakes I made in New York City recently, watch this video. If you want to learn more about your autofocus, watch this one. And make sure you grab your cheat sheet with camera settings you can use on the field anywhere in the description. And with that being said, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you like that little analysis.